Good morning, everybody. Is it morning or afternoon? Welcome to my day 5 of my 7-week writing challenge. Today's been really interesting. Again, I do meditation every time I start, and I again had this big chain, just a single big chain around my neck. And it's been lifted off. So again, this is just giving me more and more encouragement to speak honestly and truthfully about our story and all the background to it, and about Christian and myself. Okay, so the writing challenge this morning was all about escaping. So escaping, if you have a situation, sometimes all you can do is just escape from that situation to be able to find clarity. The first time I needed to escape and to find clarity was actually when Christian first went to a different school than me. You know, we grew up on a farm together. We were only 14 months apart in age. And we spent nearly every waking moment with each other. And then he disappeared off to a different school. And I was heartbroken. And in a lot of ways, I started to escape into my own little worlds. We brought up this morning in our writing together. We used to live on a farm, and there was a little stream that Christian and I would go to. We'd go off on our little adventures, and there was a stream we would visit, and the cows all used to be in the summer. The cows used to drink from this stream, so it was quite. You could walk into the stream, and it was quite potted with foot marks, hoof marks. But we used to sit there and paddle and, listen to the stream and listen to the buzzing of the flies and just the light dappling through onto the river, onto the stream. And it was a place that I went back to. I used to go back on my own. And it was a place where, Christian, we've kind of written about it this morning. It was a place where he wasn't physically there, but he was, like, his energy was there. That's where I knew where he was. And actually I think it was last year, I actually went back to the farm, because you can walk through it. There's footpaths, you can walk through it. And I went with Dad and my husband, and we walked through the farm near to where the stream was. You couldn't actually get to the stream. But I didn't feel Christian's energy there at all. And that's something which is really the aim of full and total healing from a grief, because their energy is not in the past anymore. It's actually with you in the present. You don't have memories of them, and you don't kind of live in the past. You live with them now in the present. And they are no longer kind of an energy form outside your body. We wrote about it this morning. When you have a clear heart, and you allow them their freedom, and you don't keep them in the past. They're not chained to the past. They're not chained to your grief. When you have a clear heart, it's fine to be sad that they're not physically with you anymore, but actually once you release that grief and pain, they can actually come and sit in your heart. They come and sit within you, and they're there all the time. This is the relationship I have now with Christian, it's like now, it's present. There's nothing about it in the past. You know, actually this morning we've talked about like some funny things that happen when, like the earliest thing is Christian was a baby and he was in his pram outside the front of our house, and it was on a slope, and I must have been tinkering around with the brakes. I certainly didn't mean to take the brake off. I think I was probably, Christian sort of mentioned that I was probably wanting to take him for a walk in his pram, but anyway, I let the brake off the pram and it rolled down the slope, and at the bottom of the slope, it's like family folklore now, Christian, there was a step at the bottom of the slope and Christian hit the ground and he went flying out of the pram just as our dad was walking across, and he just looked up and there was this baby Christian and dad caught him in his hands. You know, Christian had 9 lives, which will come out in the book as well. He was forever doing dangerous things, or, you know, it's a miracle actually that he lived till he did. And we were actually talking about one thing in particular this morning. We used to live in, so when we moved from the farm, it was actually the second house after moving from the farm when we learnt to drive, and Christian had this beat up old Ford, and he used to drive really quick, and there was a particular place crossing the railway line. People who know us will know where I'm talking about. You go down the hill and there's a bump, and then there's a straight bit where the railway line is, and then it kind of dips again. And Christian always used to do it on purpose because I used to hate it. But he used to drive down fast down the hill, crash over the railway line, and then launch himself into space, and coming down with he described it as a suspension shattering clunk, and then off up the hill into the village. And I used to hate him doing that. I can't. It was just the lurching in my stomach as you're launching off into space. Christian loved all that, and he was always up for a dare and what have you. But I was always the sensible one, and as he's kind of said this morning, it was a good thing I was sensible. Otherwise, we'd have probably killed ourselves both, and then that wouldn't have been so cool. So we were just sort of laughing about things and thinking about things that happened to us in the past, but actually his energy is not there in the past, it's now in the present. Something else we've also discussed this morning was escaping from when things for me got really bad. I started searching on social media for Christian in 2016, and it all just, it'll be all in the book. It's all the Facebook page, search for Chris Velton. It's all still up on Facebook, but you can, if you go right back from the beginning through to the end, you can see my mental state getting worse and worse, and you can see that because I was writing letters to Christian on the web page because I still thought he was out there and alive, so I was writing letters to him. It was the only way I could really feel I could reach him. So everything's journaled. I've got hundreds of journals, not hundreds, tens of journals. Everything's been recorded on Facebook posts. Writing's always been there to allow me to get emotions out onto the page that I couldn't handle. There were too many emotions, and Christian, anybody who knew Christian as well will know that he was continually writing. We both developed a habit of writing a diary young, and we used to use writing I'll tell you what Christian used to use writing for. he recording, sorting, planning and shifting my perceptions. That was what he used writing for. And you can write letters to people without even sending them, even just the getting things down on paper as a letter, things you want to say to them or tell them, energetically they will receive those. Energetically they will receive those thoughts and emotions, and it just allows everything to untangle itself. And I guess that's why the real importance of writing this book and writing our story and really untangling all the little knots. There's certain events which I'm still not really clear about their significance, and it's only going to be through writing and through talking about it here that I can really find out what it's all about and what I can pass on to you as healing. What else was we talking about this morning? Oh yeah, signs. Okay, yesterday we were talking about hearing the calling, all those little voices little ideas you get, and they get louder and louder and louder, and you don't answer the call, and then it gets to the point where you have to answer the call. When I started, so the escape as well, for me, when Christian first went missing, I couldn't handle it, really couldn't handle it, and I did escape. I didn't escape from my grief, I just shut it out because it was just so overwhelming. Help me out, what am I talking about? Oh yeah, and then I started to get, it was even years later, when did I start to get the signs? Probably 2015. I started to get these signs that kind of freaked me out at first because I couldn't understand what they were. I started to get a pain in my, not a pain, a warmth in the back, in my back, mid-back. And I'd look all around and think, where's that warmth coming from? And there was no reason for this warmth. And I used to see white feathers all the time. And even the kids, I've got 2 children, we would always see feathers and we'd always try and catch them. But there was this one time I was with my son, and I think my daughter as well. We were trying to catch this white feather that just suddenly appeared out of the sky. And we thought we were going to be able to catch it because it was coming down, and then suddenly it went off up and actually got hidden on top of a beam on the outside of somebody's house. And it was a message that kept being repeated to me. You know where that feather is, but you can't see it. You know it's there, you can't see it. It's just like out of grasp, out of reach. And my children did and still do give me signs all the time. They'll say things. Children are amazing. They're so open, and they really act on their instincts. It's only as time goes by that those sort of instincts get squashed out of us. Listening to being childlike, there's a lot of this, to hear the signs, to see the signs, to really listen. You have to be childlike, you really do have to be childlike and suspend your thoughts about what should and could happen, because there's so much magic out there and you're getting signs all the time, all the time. It might be, so I used to get a heat in my back. I talked yesterday about not being able to swallow. Seeing feathers, animals in nature repeatedly seeing a certain animal, that they kind of signify something now to me. Yes, all these little signs are very small, and they will help you on that path, that calling, that path. You'll be led. And this feather being hidden for me was all about Christian. You know, he was hidden in sight, but he was still there. That's it. And it took me kind of, a long time to realise the truth that he was still there. He was just dead, and he was in spirit. But they are all still there. And it's just listening to the little signs, seeing them and taking notice of them. Yeah, so gosh, we covered a lot again today. I don't want to ramble on too long. But there's actually something which I'll look into, and I need to kind of come back tomorrow. It's a book that The God of Small Things by Arundhati Roy. It was mentioned this morning in my writing course, and actually it was the only book that I've read that's really made me cry, like hysterically cry. And I know there was a brother that returns. It's one of those books which affected me so much at the time when Christian was missing. I read it, and I've actually forgotten the story, because I'm sure it's about like twins. Anyway, I need to look back at it, but there's going to be something in that book that I need to look back in again. So yeah, tears, that's really important. Tears, if you get tears, look at why you're being touched, why you're being moved. There's always something behind tears that needs to be, sudden tears. They always are a sign of something. Anyway, lots came up, so I'll keep checking comments if anybody wants to ask me anything. I did get actually, I might just answer that now. I got a lovely question. It was actually on Instagram about the difference between, I talk a lot about journaling and writing with Christian, and all the different sort of types of writing I use and writing books. Actually, I'm not sure they're all different. Even when I started writing books, some days I just couldn't write. I'd sit there, and even when I was working as a journalist, some days and some moments I just couldn't write, and I used to have to take myself off home, and I could write at home. And it was all about being in that flow, being comfortable, and with a nice mug of tea, just feeling comfortable about writing, and then it all just used to flow through me and just appear on the page. And that's kind of what happens with Christian. I suspend my monkey brain, and I just write whatever comes up. I don't know if you have to get used to it, but you have to have a habit of writing. And Julia Cameron, in her book The Artist's Way, has a brilliant exercise. Most of you, anybody who knows me, I usually give this as an exercise for people to do, and it's called morning pages. And basically you sit down in the morning or in the evening, whenever, and you just sit and write 3 pages or however many pages, a set number of pages every morning, and it doesn't matter what comes out. Initially you might not get anything, or it might just be a shopping list or whatever's on your mind, but gradually over time, getting things down onto paper, like Christian was saying about writing, it takes out all the knots in things and allows the clarity to come through, and what's in your heart, what's really wanting to come through. And we were talking earlier about Christian having been outside of me. It will come out in the book, but I could feel his energy around me a lot towards drawing up to the point where I found out the truth about him dying. He was energetically always around me, and just before I learnt the truth about him, he actually came into my body and just sat in my body for about 3 days. And that was when I knew we'd really joined, when he'd really joined into my heart. And I really thought he was then going to walk through the door alive, but we found out the truth. And so, yeah, your loved one moves from outside into your heart, and that's when they are rebirthed, when you're rebirthed, and the chains all, you'll suddenly realise you're free, and my going back in the full circle of this morning where I started was that chain being removed from my throat, from my neck, that total weightlessness, and that, you can still have sadness about somebody. The last bit of sadness I had about Christian was late last year, where again I was in the car on my own driving, and I had a sudden gut-wrenching thought that he'd never be sitting in the passenger seat with me again, because he used to drive with me in the car as well. But actually, he's now, it doesn't matter if he's not physically there, now is what is important, and he is within. And he did write actually this morning about that. Yeah, that last grasp of grief, of gut-wrenching terror that you will never be with me physically. I'm somewhere much closer now in your heart. I've moved from outside of you into the uncluttered and clarified heart within. You unlock your healing there, the strength within to delve deep into your heartfelt thoughts and emotions. Decluttering, understanding, forgiving of self and others, to make room for the most precious gift of all, which is freedom from grief and pain. Enveloping calmness, love and peace instead. Holding me within your heart is the closest place for me to be, and don't you know it, Tan? So, yeah, that's it. That's kind of all I have to tell you today. That was quite a long one as well. They seem to be getting longer and longer, but I hope something I say triggers something in you, prods you somehow, gives you some comfort somehow. And as we go along, I'm just going to be unravelling all those knots. And that's the point of these films. Okay, so if anybody, if you can think of anybody else who might like to join these Facebook Lives, if you feel they might get some comfort or something out of them, do let them know, do pass this on. I really want to reach as many people as possible doing these films. So, okay, lots of love, and I will see you tomorrow. Okay, bye.